All right, welcome U.S. government students to Tuesday, January 28th, Plan E Day. So clearly you can see I'm recording this Monday night. So after reflecting on how class went today, I realized that you probably left more confused than informed, except you were probably pretty excited about the game that you got to play. So here's what's going to happen today. I found an infographic that I think does a really simple job of explaining how a bill becomes a law. Okay, because that's the moral of the story. That's the goal that I want you guys to understand is how do we get from an idea to a legislative document in Congress, whether it be the House, the Senate, who introduces it. So I'm going to go through this infographic and try to back up and re-explain what I attempted to explain Monday, but in simpler terms. So either way, we start here. Okay, pretend we're in the House. Pretend you guys are House of Representative members. You introduce a bill in the House. This literally means that you draft up a document where you propose an idea or something that you think needs to be made into law. So that's step number one in the House of Representatives. Ironically, the Senate has the exact same first step. Same idea. A senator might have an idea. They might have gotten an idea from a constituent, from somebody else, from the president, and they decide, you know what, we think this should be a law, so we're going to introduce it here as well. Okay? Now, one thing to keep in mind is that these two things do not happen at the same time. You don't have the exact same bill being introduced in the House and introduced at the Senate at the same time. Even though it's one Congress, they work very much separate. The Senate does their thing, and the House does theirs. And they really don't come together until they have to. So it's very much of a separate process. So let's move on to step two. So pretend we're back in the House again. The House has introduced a bill. They reference it to a subcommittee. If it's a bill about education, it goes to the education subcommittee. If it's a bill about the military, it goes to the military subcommittee. If it's a bill about taxes, it can only originate in the House. The Senate does not draft bills pertaining to taxes. Only the House does. So, again, if it's about taxes, it goes to the Financial Committee. And right, state is closed. Now you guys all just saw that. Awesome. So after it goes to subcommittee, it gets marked up, it gets edited, it gets deleted, it gets changed. Sometimes it gets thrown out. Sometimes it looks completely different from how it first arrived there. But the subcommittee is the group of people responsible for marking up, editing, changing, amending this idea, this now bill. Okay? One thing to keep in mind about this infographic. Any point from when the bill is first brought to committee to the markup to when the committee decides, okay, we've made all the edits we can make, let's put it to a vote. Do we want to bring this bill with its editing to the House floor? At any point in these three steps, it can be thrown out. So tabled for future years or future sessions or a later date, or just completely disregarded and completely just burned. It's just done. Okay, so those are your two options, and any of those two things can happen in this time frame. Now, if you're lucky enough to where your bill doesn't get tabled and doesn't get thrown out, then after it's referred to subcommittee, after it's marked up and edited in subcommittee, after the committee decides, yep, we want this bill to proceed, then it gets put on the House calendar. And what's significant about this is that once it's on the calendar, that means that the entire floor is going to vote on it. And they'll debate it, and the House committee, the House rules, led by the Speaker of the House, the Rules Committee, will make the rules regarding how are we going to debate this? How long are we going to debate it for? How many amendments can be added? Because if there needs to be more changes than the Rules Committee allows, then guess what? Your bill is no longer on the floor of the entire House. It goes back to the subcommittee for further editing. Okay, so it's a long and tedious process, and at any one point you can have the whole monopoly thing where it's go to jail, do not pass go, do not collect $200. And after a while, if that happens over and over and over again, your bill is probably going to get tabled or completely thrown out. Now, if the House decides, yep, we like this, we'll find out what happens next. So just pause right there, and I'll be back.